So in this revision video, we're going to look at question 2, language analysis, and I've put in terms of direct knowledge, think about individual words and what they symbolise. You'll see a lot about we're going to talk about layering here today. Okay, so key things, question 2, 10-minute question, 8 marks. People always ask about how many paragraphs. I would say there isn't really a set amount of paragraphs. You could get top banded 1, but 2 for most of you is normally about right. It's always about layers, so can you say more than one thing about something? And it does say that you have to talk about methods, but one thing that I want you to be clear on is that, like, if you can't see a simile or you can't see personification, there's no need to panic there. Just think about individual words. Some of you should be able to look at your paragraph and see how some individual words link together. And that's a key thing, you know, how can you see a pattern of language is what the example would say. There's our question 2 then from the mock that you did. Okay, so you might pause the video at this point and you might have a quick read through that. As ever, we read the question before we read the extract. So how does the writer use language here to describe the conflict between Kino and the Scorpion? And it says you could include the writer's choice of words and phrases, language features and techniques, and sentence forms. For the majority of you, I would be crossing out sentence forms, okay, and I'd be focusing on words and phrases and perhaps language features. All right, in a 10-minute question. Okay, so here I've made a quick kind of a list, okay. I don't think in your exam that you've got time for a strenuous kind of annotation here, okay? But I've gone with this line that I sometimes use with some of you. If in doubt, look at the verbs, or in this case, the adverbs as well. So I've picked some verbs and adverbs that are used to describe Kino within this. So I've picked glided, perfectly still, whistled, slowly, smoothly, noiselessly. Now, you might think about what links those, you know, this kind of concept of silence or stealthiness. Now, in the exam, I think I could get to the top band with one paragraph if I was talking about all of those, okay? We're not thinking about kind of, right, I've got to write another paragraph in order to. But when I look at it, there's also this motif of song here, you know, new songs, Song of Evil, Song of the Family Cried. At this point, I've seen in the exam that song repeats. So now I have to think, what are songs? Why are they important? You know, what kind of connotations do they have? What does song often symbolise? With these two, I know I can get it to the top. Okay. So the key thing then, and what I've done there, I haven't worried that I haven't picked a simile. Okay, I've thought about single words and how they link, and that's going to be my focus in 10 minutes. The example would say that candidates who achieve lower on this, a pattern that they have is they choose big chunky quotations rather than, you know, talking about smaller quotations. So that's something you want to think about. Okay, right. So what I've done is I've put my paragraph together. So I've only written one, okay, and I've written it in about 5 minutes. And listen, I'm going to animate in order, just with that thing at the bottom. So I'm starting with a topic sentence, and I said the writer uses a mix of verbs and adverbs to present Kino as stealthy, something of a trained killer within the extract. Remember, for me, a topic sentence should guide you. Okay, at that point, I know I've got to have quotation. So I said the writer uses a mix of words about how Kino glided, whistled, perfectly still, how he acted noiselessly, and he moved smoothly. So I've embedded them there. Okay. In reality, I suppose you could call it a semantic field of silence or something. The term the reader is important, isn't it? So, you know, I'm talking about them in its kind of general form here. So I said when the reader is greeted by these verbs and adverbs, the suggestion that there is something professional about Kino. We'll have to consider that there's only going to be one winner between the Scorpion and himself. So, you know, as readers, we assume through that language choice that this guy is going to win. At this point, I know I've got to zoom in on words, okay? If I don't zoom on words, I haven't got layers. So I've said the verb glided has connotations of elegance and being graceful movement. The suggestion that once Kino has his eyes on the scorpion, that he's resolute and his decisions made. Furthermore, there's a rapidity to the verb choice. Kino seems like a stealthy, uncompromising killer here, and he seems like he's somebody who's unstoppable. And then, listen, I'm looking at my layers, and because I've picked a bunch of single words, I'm thinking about the link together. So the adverbs of silence, noiselessly and smoothly, present Kino as something of a ghost-like figure. The supernatural connotations about him when he's in the moment and ready to attack. He seems like something greater than human. He leaves no trace. He doesn't make any indication of the scorpion that he's there. Okay, I think that's my strongest inference, that one in black. Sometimes we think about tone, and I think this idea that he's presented as something greater than human in this battle, I think that's your perceptive inference. Again, to readers, the writer seems to have presented him as a figure who seems only unbeatable, making us remember that in the Battle of the Scorpion, grown man, there's only going to be one winner. There's an inevitable thing that this grown man is going to hurt the Scorpion in the really. So that's the kind of layers that I've gone through. Okay, so there's the paragraph all put together there. And on the right hand side, I've just put those key things that you want to remember about question 2. Have a topic sentence at the direction point. Embed your single words. Think about how they link together. Make sure that you can zoom in on some. Okay, think about how I've started to layer when I talk about gliding. I've talked about it's graceful, that's layer 1. I've talked about how it links to him being resolute, because if you glide, you're not stopping, number 2. And then I've talked about the rapidity of it as well, layer 3. Layering those analyses. And I've talked about the effect on the reader, okay? And then I've put that phrase at the bottom, a lot about a little. And that's the key thing for us. We don't want to fall into that trap of referring to 20 quotations in 10 minutes and saying nothing about them, okay? So that's question 2. So I've said, if we're revising language by doing language, have a go about the one with music. Okay, I've asked you what you're going to think about. Give yourself 5 minutes, see if you can write that paragraph.